Okay, chit chat time. I'm on live now, and we'll just wait a few minutes before folks start joining us. And I've got this white curly thing. He's got his nose stuck into my arm. We'll be talking about him tonight. Goodness sakes. You can't hear me? Well, can you hear me? Hi, Kathy. Can you hear me? Tammy, let me know. Christina, just let me know if you can hear me. Hi, Shannon. Any problems with sound at all? Can you all hear me? I think we have a little concern with sound. Just want to make sure that we're all right with that. This is Buster looking super uncomfortable because I've got him on my lap in a strange way. Yep, you can hear me? Are they saying yes, they can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All righty. So I've got Buster with me tonight. Actually, he's with me at all times. He's always at my feet or close by. But I thought I'd put him on my lap because we're going to talk a little bit about him. And I'm dying of heat right now. He's throwing off so much heat. Excuse me for complaining to those who are in the north and freezing their keisters off. It's warm down here right now in Florida. It was a very hot day and very muggy. And so with this hot poodle in my lap, he's all wool and curly. And I'm not holding him very well because I'm not in a comfortable chair. So this is my poodle, Buster, and we're going to talk a little bit about him tonight. So I wanted to be sure that we have enough people here to start. Hi, Natalie. Nice to see you. Hi, Rosemary. Tammy. Nice to see. Oh, I love to see all these folks. I also understand that Cheyenne joins in. Hi, Cheyenne. I don't see you here showing up, but if you watch this later on, hi, Cheyenne, back in cold Rochester, New York. All righty. So tonight, we're going to talk a little bit of, we're going to talk about another remedy, of course, because we're doing our Materia Medica, and we're following through. We're still in the A's, but we're not exactly in alphabetical order, but it's close enough. So I feel pretty comfortable that we can do it this way. The remedy we're going to talk about tonight is related to this. So, oh, Buster may end up going. I think I'm going to let him go because he's uncomfortable and he's making me awfully hot. Okay. So it's related to this. In fact, this is exactly what it is. It's an onion. So we're going to talk about onion tonight. And the remedy is called Allium cepa. And that is spelled A-L-L-I-U-M, 2 words. Cepa is the second word, C-E-P-A. And it is always, pardon me? Yes, we're going to recap last week, so I'll just tell you a little bit about this Allium cepa, and then we'll recap what we did last week, too. And Allium cepa is spelled, when we write down a homeopathic medicine name, the first word is, the first letter of the first word is capitalized, and the second word, that first letter, is not capitalized. And it is Latin. All homeopathic medicines are Latin because they are medicine. We don't come up with marketing terms like lunesta. Cracks me up. Or sonata. Instead, we actually use the real word. Hyoscyamus, Stramonium, Allium cepa, Arnica montana, Athusas. These are the real medical terms, the real Latin words. So before we get into Allium cepa a little bit, let's talk about last week. Last week I talked about Athusa, and I mentioned that with Athusa, we use it, I'm looking at my Materia Medica here, I'm going to go back to it. With Athusa, we are always talking about, not always, but for the most part, it's a very powerful medicine to uproot dairy intolerances. And I said that the method that we use is Athusa 200C. And then at the end, I asked a question to see who might win if they had the answer. And that is, do we use Athusa 30C if we don't have a 200C? Now, some of you answered, yes, we use what we've got. That question is correct in other circumstances. When we're using homeopathic medicine for an acute situation, and we only have Arnica 30, but Arnica 200 is really called for, then we use what we've got. But when it comes to a chronic condition, and you want to really go deep and uproot the very foundation of this problem, it is always better to use exactly the protocol that I teach, which is usually a Banerjee protocol, not always, but it usually is. And a Thusa 200C every other day or once a day, etc., is, by the way, a Banerjee protocol. I had never learned to use a Thusa for dairy intolerances as a classical homeopath. It was the Banerjees who taught me when I spent those years in Calcutta with them. So the answer was that we should use a Thusa 200 and wait until we get the 200 instead of using a 30, should we already have that on hand. I always say in my blog, you can use whatever potency you like. But if you expect to get the kinds of results that I've grown accustomed to experiencing and observing, then you really want to use the recipe as best you possibly can. So that's, we had a winner. Her name was Tiffany. We sent her book off to her. She lives in Canada, and so she'll be receiving her book. She'll probably get it in the next couple days or so. We sent it off about the middle of last week. And now tonight we're going to give another prize, and the prize will be a homeopathic medicine by Boron on the medicine that we're talking about on that subject, which is Allium cepa, and it will be Allium cepa 30. Now, in this situation, what I'm teaching tonight about Allium cepa, it is not a chronic condition generally, although it can be. When it's a chronic condition, we have to stick by the rule a little bit closer. But Allium cepa is so well known in the homeopathic world that we don't need an absolute protocol for this. It is the medicine for a nose that runs, the upper lip excoriates, the eyes are running. It's an excellent medicine for colds. It's one of the best remedies for the common cold. In fact, if you look at many of the common cold combination medicines that are out there on the market, put out by Boron or Hahnemann or Highlands, etc., OHM, you will find Allium cepa is often included. So what we would use this for is, let's go back to this. When you cut up an onion, what happens when you cut up an onion? Precisely what you're going to experience when you need Allium cepa, having nothing to do with an onion. So don't think that the reason I take Allium cepa is because I've cut an onion, but rather it's as though I have cut an onion. So we cut it up, and what happens? Eyes run, nose runs, upper lip can excoriate, and it's almost like a flood coming from the nose. It's a faucet practically. And I'm reading from, and I'm using my Materia Medica here to go over a lot of this so that you know that that is my reference, but I use other references as well. And one of the others that I'm using is Roger Morrison's book. There can be a lot of coryza, a headache that is related to coryza. It's a great medicine for hay fever. Now, it's not the medicine I think of first for hay fever to uproot the condition and go at the chronic. It's what I consider using for when we're using a baseline homeopathic medicine for hay fever. And then we have an acute example of it or acute episode of it. That's when we use the Allium cepa. So we use the Allium cepa as an SOS. People have hay fever. They know they only have it at certain times of the year. And so, or certain times when they're exposed to certain things, when they're around barns or animals or flowers, pollen, etc., then we know that we can use Allium cepa at that time. And in that case, we would use Allium cepa most likely in a 30. We can also use it in a 6. But we're going to talk about it in a 30 tonight. And we use it in a 30, and we take it every 3 to 4 hours until it calms down the intensity of the symptoms. Then as it calms down the intensity of the symptoms, we open it up. Instead of every 3 hours, we might go to every 6 hours. Still calming down, still good. Okay, now we might go to every 8 hours or every 12 hours. Now we're using it twice a day for a couple of days. Okay, now we're seeing it gone. Okay, back off. Don't use it any longer. That's because we're using it as an acute. When we're talking about a chronic condition or we're uprooting the chronic, now we use that more consistently. And should you be interested, if you want to go this far, I do have a course titled Allergic. And that talks a lot about using these kinds of medicines and how to use them on those two levels, the uprooting and then the SOS. So allium cepa for colds, for hay fever, for allergies. Maybe you don't even know that it's an allergy. It just is what it is. It might look like an allergy, but there's no evidence necessarily. It's just that the nose is running. Now, interestingly, I've actually used Athusa to help uproot the dairy intolerance, as I spoke of it last week. I used Athusa for that. And then as an acute, we might use allium cepa because the nose is running and running and running and running. Meanwhile, Athusa is acting slowly. It's like, and I've used this, and please don't criticize me for saying the same things over and over again. I never know where I've said what. So please understand that the way I see this is like a symphony. In a symphony is the string section, and the string section carries the melody, carries the storyline in the symphony. Every once in a while in comes the glockenspiel or the triangle or the oboe. And so the Athusa is one of the medicines that is part of the string section. There are others that we can also use. We can use calcarb, we can use tuberculinum, and again, I teach all of this in my courses on in allergic. But just to give you a basic understanding so that you can decide whether or not this applies to you or a member of your family. And then we use the allium cepa as the glockenspiel. In comes the runny nose that's a constant runny, excoriating upper lip. That's how we use allium cepa. So someone said to me the other day, it was really kind of fun. They said, I wish you would describe, or someone would tell us, explain how you pronounce these names. Given that they're another language, they're Latin, how do we know how to pronounce them? Well, I mean, certainly you can Google it. But I just want to look something up for you and explain a little something to you, okay? So as well as long and short syllables, Latin also has a stress accent like English. This is where the natural emphasis goes when speaking. The stress accent in the word is determined by the length of the syllables, but not the same as that doesn't make any sense, but it's determined by the length of the syllables. Unlike English, there are fairly consistent rules to work out where the stress accent is placed in Latin words. So here are the rules, and I don't expect you to know these rules because I'm going to give you a little bit better way to explain this or to remember it. Number one, for words of 2 syllables, the accent always goes on the second last syllable. Okay, easy enough to remember, right? But the second rule is for words of more than 2 syllables where the second last syllable is long, the accent goes on the second last syllable. Okay, well, I don't know if we want to remember all of this. And the third rule is for words of more than 2 syllables where the second last syllable is short, the accent goes on the third last syllable. Okay, let's make it a little easier. Latin is basically, or Italian is basically Latin. And so the way I remember, not because I have to, actually I don't have to remember, but because my parents spoke Italian as I was growing up and I was around Italian a lot, to me it seemed kind of easy. But for those of you who are not familiar with Italian or Latin, maybe you didn't go to a Catholic school and be subjected to Latin every day. The way that I look at it is like this. If you say, you go to an Italian restaurant, say, and you say, I would like a plate of spaghetti and a couple of meatballs and some hyosayamas. That's a remedy, hyosayamas. Or I would like a plate of spaghetti and a side plate of, now remember, pepperoni. You don't say pepperoni or pepperoni, you say pepperoni. Hyosayamas, Athusa, allium cepa, You see, after a while, it starts to sound like Italian. Once you start hearing it as an Italian word, it falls into place. So pretend you're at an Italian restaurant and you don't say calendula, it's calendula. I've heard it mispronounced so many times. It's not arnica, it's arnica. So it makes it more readily available if you can make it slip off the tip of your tongue as though you're in an Italian restaurant. So, all right. So what are we going to do next? Let's make sure that we go, our contest. So we've got this medicine and we're going to give it to one person. Actually, Boron is offering it. I'm not actually offering it. I'm just suggesting it to Boron, and they are a wonderful company to work with, and they're usually pretty compliant with my requests. So we're going to give this away to the first person who comes up with this answer. Why is it that when we write out a homeopathic medicine or when we read it in a book that the word is italicized? I've given you lots of little hints here and there without actually saying it that way, but I've said it a couple of times to help you get through it. So I'm going to wait and see. And Natalie, speaking of pronunciation, Natalie's name has is a TH and a TH, so we, for fun, call her Nathalie. And Nathalie will check out who wins it for, who gets it first. Why do we italicize homeopathic medicines names? When they're read, you see them italicized. And when you write them, as I said earlier, you're going to put the first letter in capital, it's capitalized of the first word, and the second word is doesn't have any capitalization, and that's the correct way of writing it out, but it's always italicized. Let's see if you can tell us why. So I'm also looking here to see, last week's remedy was Aethusa, Aethusa. You may watch it anytime, folks. You don't have to watch this just live, so you can go back and it's recorded, so you can certainly watch it at any time. And hi, Amanda, nice to see you. Yes, tonight's prize is Allium Cepa 30. Thank you for reiterating that, Natalie. And I wanted to tell a story about Buster. How could I forget that? That's why I had him in my arms earlier. Buster had, who knows if it was hay fever, but his one eye was weeping. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's an infection or maybe he got something in it. And it was watery, but even more than that was his nose was running, and dogs' noses aren't supposed to run, but it was running and running and running. Now, I couldn't tell whether or not his upper lip was excoriated because he's got black lips. A black nose, black eyes, and black lips. So I would not be able to tell because I wouldn't see redness and I wouldn't see, with all of his fur, I couldn't see whether or not it was excoriating. So I used this medicine, Allium Cepa 30. I gave him a dose when I first noticed it in the morning. Now he'd been, kind of complaining in his little poodleish way, but I hadn't kind of noticed until it had been going on for about 2 or 3 days. So I gave him a dose of it in the morning, Allium Cepa 30, and then I gave it to him. I noticed it again. I don't think to give it to him right away because I have to kind of be reminded, and so indeed I was reminded. I saw his eye watering and his nose all wet and liquidy, and so I gave him another dose at about noon. Then I gave it to him one more time at around 6 o'clock that night, and then before we went to bed. The next morning, his nose looked a little bit less watery. His eye wasn't quite as puffy and also wasn't watery, so I continued. It was acting, but it wasn't finished acting. Now, I used to say, by all means, stop when you see any improvement at all, but that's not enough improvement for me these days. I like to see speed, and I want to see things move as fast as we possibly can within the realm of the rules. So I gave him another dose that morning and then again at noon, and by 3 in the afternoon, he looked perfectly normal. So I stopped. That night, he looked good. Next morning, he looked good. Late the next afternoon, this is day 3 now, it started to come back again. What do? Start up the Allium Cepa again. Now, if there was a new symptom, I might have thought twice about considering another medicine, but we hate to tinker with success. Let's stay with what we know is acting. So I gave it to him again. And I would say I gave it to him probably 3 or 4 times a day for about 4 days. And that was the end of it. That was about, I'm going to take a guess, maybe 2 years ago. And we've not seen that since in our poodle. He believes in homeopathy. In fact, all I have to do is open up the bottle and twist it and pour it. I actually pour it on the floor. 2 or 3 little pills, and we say, come on, Buster, come get your remedy. And he comes and gets it and licks it up. So he's a compliant little poodle. So do we have anyone who knows why homeopathic medicines are italicized? Yes, glad to hear that, Barbara, that you love this remedy. Do we have anyone yet? Have you seen anyone, Perry? Why does anyone have an answer? Yes, we do have someone?
No, say the question.
Oh, I'll repeat the question again. Why are homeopathic medicines, when they're written out and you read them, why are they italicized? In a normal print, you see a conventional print, but homeopathic medicines are, if they're not italicized, it's generally a mistake. So they should always be italicized. I'm going to look through and see if Athusa, A-E-T-H-U-S-A, it's the medicine we talked about last week. This week we're talking about Allium cepa, A-L-L-I-U-M, cepa, C-E-P-A. So let's just see if anyone has it. No, it's not Thuya. We didn't talk about Thuya. We're in the A's still. We've got a long way to get to those T's for Thuya. Athusa, A-E-T-H-U-S-A. I'm going to go down here and see if anyone has come up with. Oh, we do have someone. I see one person. Oh, we got another one. Yep, we do. So it's whoever came in first. Yep, got another one. Oh, look at this. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, so the answer is because they are Latin. And Latin is a foreign language. And obviously, and anytime we're writing in English, and we're using a word that's from a foreign language, another language, we italicize it. So it's a great way to explain the beauty of homeopathy, because these are Latin words, the scientific names. All of science is in Latin. Good job. A lot of people got it right.
Who got it first?
I don't know who got it first. We're just going to have Natalie figure that out. Absolutely. Nice job, everyone. I see it, Latin name, because it's in Latin. It's in Latin. Hi, Darylyn. Nice to see you, sweetie. Great to see that you're here. Yeah, Latin, original root word. A good way of putting it. That's an interesting way of putting it. Hello from San Juan. Hi. That's Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Latin name, another person. Yeah, people are really getting this right. Nice to see everyone here. Let's see if there are any questions. Let's see if we can answer a question or two. If I can, I would love to be able to do that. Yes, when words that belong to another language are used, they are italicized for clarity. Very good.
Looks like Francine.
Yeah, Francine may have been the first one. Whoever it is, Nathalie will contact them and we will get this remedy sent off to you directly from Boron. So watch for it from Boron. Latin origin. Beautiful, folks. This is great. You know, it lends credibility to homeopathy that we use these names in their original forms, in my estimation, that we're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and come up with cutesy names, like I said earlier. Oh, good, she's in Ohio. Yeah, that's great. Makes it a little easier, doesn't it? Yep, there's already a winner. Yep, we've got a winner. Wonderful. So that's another reason why I love homeopathy, because it is, what's the word? Genuine? Homeopathy is polite. It doesn't slam us across the face to get rid of that infection. It gently stimulates to uproot infections. It very politely moves us along in a cold or a flu or a boil or a shin splint pain or a torn meniscus, etc. It doesn't whack us. And we can often use homeopathy instead of conventional drugs. I've done it very, very successfully. So far, so good. I must admit, though, when I had a tooth extracted, I did have a local anesthetic. So I'll be honest with you. There is a time that's what I used one time in the last, I don't know, 35 years. Was there another time? Oh, I did have an emergency surgery some 25 years ago, and I had to be put under general anesthesia. And of course, that's what we're going to do. We have to be smart about this. That surgery, it was actually for an ectopic pregnancy. I had no choice. I don't know of any homeopathic medicine that would have helped me uproot an ectopic pregnancy. It was either do or die. So I chose to do. So I think that's it. That's been a good night. Let's make sure I covered everything. We went over the material medica. For those of you who are not in our study groups, please consider that. I cannot tell you. It's not because I need you to be there, but because I know how important these study groups are. You can only learn at your highest level when you share. You can learn alone, and I did it for years. But I learned so much faster and such greater depth when I learned with others. So be sure to go to my website, joettecalabrese.com, and look at our study group. Our Gateway to Homeopathy study group, and consider starting a study group, joining a study group. And if you don't know how to, or you're worried about whether or not you can really get into one, by all means, just call our office. Eileen is there. Shannon is there. They're all there to help you figure out the best way for you to learn how to incorporate homeopathy into your lifestyle, along with fellow mothers and grandmothers. So with that, I say, God bless you all. Good luck this week. See you next week. Bye now.